what we got yesterday from the Waleses was this tale of two Georges. We got the rather formal portrait of him, and then you see off-duty George. And this is family life, life behind the scenes, and what they really are trying to do, which is give him as normal a childhood as possible.
What we're thinking about is a well-rounded head of state being prepared for the future. And what Prince George has got is a fantastic mother.
That photograph, that's exactly what that kind of oozes, is confidence and someone kind of, so young, but very aware of what the future holds for him.
This week on the Royals Uncensored, the teenage heir. As Prince George turns 13, insiders say that nobody has ever been better prepared for the throne. Let's examine that, shall we?
Meanwhile, it's a whirlwind week of state business for King Charles, from appointing another Prime Minister, his fourth of his reign, by the way, to the opening of the Commonwealth Games. But can the King keep the Commonwealth together?
Also coming up, where do the Royals go on their summer vacations? We'll tell you whether you'll be racing any of them to the sun lounges, and what does the King really think about taking a break?
Plus, Oprah Winfrey breaks her silence on that interview. Yes, you know, the one with Harry and Meghan. I'm Katie Nicholl.
And I'm Jo Elvin, and joining us in the studio is the royal commentator Sarah Hewson and distinguished historian A.N. Wilson. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
But where is our other lovely co-host, the royal butler Grant Harrold? I hear you cry.
Well, fear not, because he is joining us from the high seas, nonetheless. Grant, where are you? What on earth are you wearing, and why are you not here in the studio?
Do you know, I have to be dressed up because I'm on one of the Royals' favourite brands, Cunard ships, which obviously gets royal endorsement. I'm on Queen Anne, and they're very formal here. So in the evenings, everybody gets dressed up. So that's why I'm in my black tie, and we're basically going around Europe. And I should quickly also mention, I'm giving talks on here to theatres of about 900 people, and we are talking about Royals Uncensored as well.
Now, Grant, you look very dapper at the top up, but give us a twirl. I want to see the full regalia.
You want to see the?
Okay.
I'm on.
Grief!
Right. Okay.
So
now you all know the truth.
encouraging this?
Because
I
think the people need to know what. What's going on behind the glamour.
It is uncensored, chaps. You know it. Now,
It is a holiday.
It is to something more fragrant than Grant's pink shorts. Sarah.
Were they actually shorts?
Well, I don't know what they were. You were at Sandringham this week, weren't you?
It was yesterday. It was the first ever Royal Horticultural Society flower show to take place in a private royal residence at Sandringham. The King and Queen were there. They were driven there by carriage, just in their back garden, and it was a really, really special event. And we know they are both mad keen gardeners, so this, for them, was a real highlight.
And there was a particular highlight at the exhibition, I understand, that the King was quite taken by, a throne of a different kind.
A throne of a different kind, exactly. This was in the upcycled container garden.
Oh, my gosh.
Eric.
Yes, we're looking at that right now.
A toilet and basin packed full of flowers. We know that the King is one for recycling and sustainability. This might be taking it to a whole new level, but this one really amused him. The Queen was presenting an award to the next door container garden, which was from a local primary school, was full of bees, but this one really did catch the King's eye. And he also has helped design one of the gardens there, the Royal Legacy Garden.
So it's a bit like Chelsea, just
It's
in
Chelsea
Sandringham.
in Norfolk.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Wonderful one, I'm sure. Proved to be very successful and fragrant too. So, well, Prince George is 13, isn't he? He turned 13 on Wednesday. And as well as a lovely, very charming photograph of the young prince, the Prince of Wales also issued on their Instagram page a highlights reel of the second in line to the throne, doing what all little boys enjoy doing most: having fun. And he really does look like he's having fun. Sarah, I know you and I have a love of Norfolk in common, and one of the things that really strikes me when you watch that reel is just the freedom and nature and ordinary schoolboy happiness that he's able to enjoy when he's there.
Absolutely, and I think what we got yesterday from the Waleses was this tale of two Georges. We got the rather formal portrait of him, which was taken just after trooping the colour. He'd whipped off his tie, but was still in his suit and his shirt, hands in his pockets, and that was the formal role, and the role that he's going to have to carry out for the rest of his life. And then you see off-duty George, and this is family life, life behind the scenes, and what they really are trying to do, which is give him as normal a childhood as possible. The footage was filmed in Cornwall in the Easter holidays. We know that they'll be spending much of the summer holidays in their beloved Norfolk, and that's what they do. It's outdoors, all of this, you know, the great outdoors, getting out away from screens.
Playing cricket, enjoying the countryside. Jo, I want to ask you, actually, that photograph, which was taken by Matt Porteous just after Trooping the Colour, and as Sarah said, sort of two very different images, and him looking formal, but not so formal, he's in a tie. Who do you think he takes after?
Honestly, it really struck me that he's a real blend of both sides of his parentage, don't you think?
I do.
I think for the first time I've seen him really resemble Charlotte, who I always think is the spitting image of Queen Elizabeth. But he looks very much like his maternal grandfather, Mike, there.
Yes.
And he's looking like he's going to keep the hair,
Well,
as Mike has done.
He's going to keep the hair,
Yeah.
and he's 5'9". I mean, when we
Incredible.
saw those last footage of him with his mother, they were visiting one of the RAF centres. He's almost as tall as his mother. I mean, it won't be long, probably this summer, because they sort of sprout like flowers, don't they, the children, during the summer holidays. I'm sure he will be, you know, at his mother's height. And he's a gorgeous-looking boy. He's got I'm told, a summer of fun, of just good old-fashioned fun before he starts Eton. There was an interesting article in The Telegraph, Andrew. I don't know if you saw it. It was by Hannah Furness, and it was a sort of look at how George is the best prepared heir for the role that lies ahead of him. Now, one person who disagreed with that was Dan Snow. I think we've got a clip from his Instagram. We're just going to play it to you.
This is the funniest headline I have ever seen in my entire life. What are we talking about here? Just think of the competition. The future Henry V. When he was 12, he went on a military campaign in Ireland where he was knighted by the king. He spoke Latin, French and English. He was the High Sheriff of Cornwall at age 15. At age 17, he was fighting for his family's throne by his father's side at the Battle of Shrewsbury. He was horrifically wounded in the face by an arrow.
Right, OK. Well, I don't think we want anyone to be injured in the face by an arrow. That goes without saying.
Dan wants it.
Let's just point out he's talking about an heir from the 15th century.
Yes, yes.
But, Andrew, I want to ask you, because I think one of the things the Waleses do so brilliantly is, as Sarah said, raising their children with an awareness of their places, particularly George in the line of succession, but enabling them to have a childhood, which is something every child deserves. Where do you stand on this, and how well prepared do you think George is?
Well, obviously, if you're thinking of him as going to be a medieval king going into battle, then possibly the last speaker had something to be said in his favour. But of course, he was talking absolute rubbish, because what we're thinking about is a well-grounded head of state being prepared for the future. And what Prince George has got is a fantastic mother who has given her entire life to being not merely his mother, but also the mother of the royal family. And that's a most wonderful gift. We all revere the memory of the late Queen, but nobody in the world would have ever thought she was a very good mother. And a lot of the problems that the royal family has faced have been the disastrous parenting of Elizabeth and Philip.
Well, absent...
Whereas these two, the Waleses, are fantastic parents. And those three children have got really wonderful parents. It's a life of great privilege, obviously, because many children watching that clip you've seen would love to have a summer in Norfolk like that and all the privilege that goes with it. But far more important than the material privilege is the emotional grounding that Kate Middleton is giving to her children.
I think you make a really valid point. I mean, the Queen, when she came to the throne, was a young queen. She had two young children. She had to leave them behind to go off and do a tour of the Commonwealth. We'll be talking about the Commonwealth later on in the show. And you're right, she was largely absent during that period.
And then... also that class, and after all, her mother was an aristocrat, not a royal, they never saw their children. And that entire class were all screwed up by being sent to boarding schools and being neglected and put in charge of ridiculous nannies and so on and so forth. Whereas these children have been brought up by their parents, they've been given high tea in the kitchen, and they are a proper family.
Well, you mentioned the word class, and of course, I think most people do realise what an important role the Middletons have played in the raising of the Wales children. And there was a time when they were knocked, actually, Sarah, I think it's fair to say, for being a little bit middle class, whereas actually it is probably, I would say, the best thing to have happened to the royal family.
Absolutely, and I think William recognises that and hugely values what they bring to the family. And you will remember the snobbery, the doors to manual gags about Carol Middleton and her former career as an air stewardess. But they are very, very involved. That video that was released after Catherine finished her chemotherapy, right there at the table playing cards with the children were Carol and Michael Middleton. When Catherine was going through treatment, who was there to support the family? Carol and Michael. And that very solid family unit that the Middletons represent is what William lacked. And he has talked about, you know, wanting to make sure that his children have that very stable, secure, happy upbringing that he didn't have, given the turbulence of his parents' marriage and the very public breakdown of that. And I think, as Andrew says, they are very present as parents. They are their school drop-off, school pick-up, the matches. They get criticised for, you know, potentially being work shy sometimes, for taking the holidays off. But they place a huge amount of importance in raising their children and doing it themselves.
Now, time for a tea, a coffee, a cake, maybe a gin, and a quick word about our sponsors. Summer is here. We love it, obviously. Al fresco dining, garden parties, the beach, and let's be honest, it's all a lot more fun when you're feeling good outside and in. These days, we all know that a healthy gut can help with just about everything from digestion to skin to thick and healthy hair. What you might not know is that Cowboy Colostrum could help with them all. They even ran a clinical study to measure it, and the numbers back them up. 83% reported improved gut health, 79% noticed less bloating and inflammation, while 72% saw improved digestion, 62% saw fuller, thicker hair. Katie, there's some facts.
There are a lot of facts.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds good to me, and as a lover of natural ingredients, I can enjoy this knowing it's not ultra-processed and there are no nasties in it. It's high protein for the ultimate nutrient density, making it the highest quality you can buy with no artificial flavours and no fillers, just real, whole ingredients. And the best news is that it actually tastes really good. They've just launched a delicious new flavour, cookies and cream, which you can mix with milk for a classic milkshake experience or add it to your morning smoothie, which I'll be doing on my way to the gym. So try the new cookies and cream for yourself. And for a limited time, our viewers and listeners get up to 25% off their entire order. Just head to cowboycolostrum.com/royals and use the code ROYALS at the checkout. That's 25% off when you use code ROYALS at cowboycolostrum.com/royals. And this is an important summer because it is going to be the last summer George has before he goes off to boarding school. And I'm curious to know how you feel they are preparing him for this, because it's quite a big moment.
It's a really big moment, not just for George, but actually for the rest of the family.
100%.
For Charlotte and Louis as well, as their big brother goes off to boarding
And
school.
Mum and Dad.
And for Mum and Dad, waving him off. And he's going to be full boarding, so that means he'll be at school for around 3 weeks before he comes home for an Exeat weekend. I think they want to make this summer packed full of fun and making memories as a family. He started doing a little bit of flexi boarding, a few odd nights while he was at Lambrook, his prep school. So he will be prepared. And of course, William knows exactly what it is like because it is his former school and it's been chosen because they feel that it is a very safe environment and a very nurturing environment for George. It's tough. It's going to be academically tough.
Of course, we're talking about Eton College, if we didn't mention that at the beginning.
Yes.
But I'm curious to know about which parents are already sharpening their elbows to say, make sure you become friends with the kids. It's like, it affects the whole school, doesn't it? Not just the family.
It does, and we've seen that with the prep schools as well, and it does change a dynamic of a school because you've got certain parents who think, actually, that's not what I want because we don't want to change the school, and others who think, I wonder if my child can be great friends with a future king.
Yes, and introduce the sister.
Exactly.
It's like, my imagination's running wild. I've got a whole reality show going on.
You know, it's what Carol Middleton was supposed to have done with the choice of university for her daughter.
That's worked out quite well.
It has worked out quite well.
Yeah, it's a good
Grant,
plan.
I want to ask you, what do you feel about how they have prepared, how the Prince and Princess of Wales have prepared George for Eton? I mean, is he ready for this next step? He seems like a very confident, happy young man to me.
He does. I mean, that photograph, that's exactly what that kind of oozes is confidence and someone kind of, so young, but very aware of what the future holds for him. And I think the one thing that's interesting about the Prince and Princess of Wales, knowing what they were like, which is quite extraordinary when I think about it, because he's 13. I think when I'm met his father first time, he was in the early 20s. It's not that huge gap. But the one thing about his father and his mother is that we've spoken this many times before, they're very down to earth and they've got a very different approach to how things are done, as well as doing some of the traditional things. So I'm sure that his father will have shared many of his stories, his memories of when he was at Eton, and his father loved it, and his uncle. They both had an amazing time there. So I'm sure that he'll be fully aware of what to expect, and he'll make it his own. Hopefully he'll enjoy it. I mean, as you know, some people go to boarding schools and they don't enjoy it. That's the reality of it. But as like his grandfather, but hopefully he will enjoy it.
I'm sure he will. And as you say, Grant, William had such a wonderful time, very happy memories there. But of course, for now, Sarah, the focus is on just enjoying the summer. He will have had, I think, a low-key birthday party, probably with the Middletons, a home-baked cake by Catherine, because we know she loves to bake.
As does Charlotte. Maybe it was a mum and sister double act.
Who knows? It'll have been a busy kitchen for sure. But we are told, and this is your exclusive, that the present he won't have been opening up is an iPhone, which I suppose is a lot of teenagers expect that that's what they're going to get. Not so for Prince George.
Not so for Prince George for a number of reasons, primarily because William and Catherine are very strict on phones. They've made that very, very clear. They want to protect their children from that. Catherine's work with the early years has very much influenced the way she parents, getting out and about, not being on screens, protecting their children from social media, something that all parents
Gosh, good luck with that.
Grappling with. But if your child is the future king, well, that's a dilemma and a half. How much you give them, how much you protect them.
Well, and how much other children will be feeding that information from their phones anyway.
Anyway,
I think,
But at Eton College, they have a no smartphone policy, so there will not be smartphones there unless somebody's snuck one in. So George won't be alone in that, in not having a phone. He may get a brick phone. So, you know, an old phone that he can just make calls, texts, maybe play Snake on. I'm showing my age. And that's it, but no smartphone for him. And I think that's entirely in keeping with the work that they've done on young people, on raising children, but also on mental health as well.
I think it's a good rule of thumb for all of our kids, really. I'd love to see it come in. It's in Australia, isn't it? No social media for under 16s.
And
it's a tough one.
The school sets the ground rules, and it makes your life as a parent far easier. Their battle is far easier.
It's very hard, though, when they're communicating on WhatsApp. I have a teenage daughter. She's the same age as Prince George, and we've had so many arguments about the phone and WhatsApp. And I take my hat off to William and Catherine because it's not easy, but they do have to lead by example. And then he's probably turning around and saying, "But you're on Instagram and you put that video out of me, and I'm getting teased about it."
Exactly, that'll be an interesting first day for George. But Eton, let's talk about Eton for a minute, because it's not just the home of many, many future kings who've been schooled, but also Britain's prime ministers. 20 prime ministers have come from Eton, including the first, Sir Robert Walpole. I'm sort of like reading here to get my facts right, everybody. 1690 to 1696, and of course Boris Johnson, the most recent prime minister there. One prime minister who did not go to Eton, unsurprisingly, is our new one, Andy Burnham. He went and met the King to take over from Keir Starmer just this week. I love this little fun fact. They were seeing him now meeting the King there. There was no formal entrance through the quadrangle, as is usual at Buckingham Palace, but he had to go through something called the luggage door, which is the side entrance located in the quadrangle, because it's still open for tourists. And, you know, I suppose they weren't expecting a new Prime Minister quite so soon after the last one this time. But it's fascinating, isn't it? How important, Andrew, is that relationship between a monarch and a Prime Minister?
It's always been important, but in my view, given the fact that we now seem to have a new Prime Minister every few weeks, it's incredibly important that we should have one solid figure in our public life, the head of state.
Absolutely.
And this king, in my view, I actually was quite surprised by how well he's done it, but he has done it incredibly well. He's been judicious, he's been good-humoured, he's been sensitive to a whole range of different people within the community. And he's got far more grasp of what's going on in this country than any of the political parties, and he's above party. So it's deeply important.
It is important, isn't it? And I think a lot of the criticism comes that obviously the monarch doesn't have a mandate. He's not elected.
Well, he does have a mandate.
Yeah.
No, he very much has a mandate. But it's just that he hasn't been elected through some semi-bogus political system. But he does have a mandate because he wouldn't be there unless the people wanted him to be there.
And it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think before he was king, there was a lot of criticism that Charles might be too political. He was always very vocal about the issues that he cared about when he was Prince of Wales for many years. So how do you think he's navigated that transition?
Well, his mother never said anything which could remotely be described as political, and even when she was thought to be in favour of the United Kingdom remaining united or something, the remarks she's supposed to have made about Scottish nationalism were so ambiguous and ambivalent, you couldn't really understand what anybody was talking about.
She purred down the phone, I think
down
David
the
Cameron
phone.
said, didn't she?
But, I mean, it's perfectly clear where the King stands. He stands for a united kingdom in the proper sense of the word, never mind what happens to Scotland, Wales or Ireland, but that we should all be united with one another and live together. And he has done more than anything else through the Prince's trust, through constantly visiting all different parts of the country, all classes and types and all religions and backgrounds, that he is a unifying figure in this divided kingdom.
Yeah.
And that's an incredibly important role for him to play. And no politician can do that.
Do you suspect, though, that he and his family are somewhat eye-rolly at what's going on at the moment? It's like, you know, they're sort of like as frequent as buses, the Prime
Well, they'd be
Ministers.
like Brenda in Bristol, wouldn't they? They'd be thinking, not another.
Yeah,
as
exactly.
one comes through the door.
Exactly. And famously, I think a lot of people expect that the royal family will get on with the Conservative Prime Ministers the most. But you must have an idea of, like, who was the best and worst relationships?
You know, I don't think it's necessarily true because they are non-party, and they really are non-party. When you look back to Queen Elizabeth II, the one Conservative leader that we know she clashed with, disagreed with, and was openly against was Margaret Thatcher.
And why?
Particularly because of the Commonwealth, which I know we're going to talk about later, but also because Margaret Thatcher ruled by divide and rule. She was a divisive figure. She was a confrontational figure. And the royals have always ruled by unifying and by finding what we have in common.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it, with all the scandals that we've had over the last few years, Sarah, with Andrew, the former prince. We have a Labour government who has been more vocal about wanting to scrutinise things like the peppercorn rents and the whole thing. How do you think Andy Burnham will sit with his relationship with the royal family?
Well, I think Andy Burnham had his first meeting as Prime Minister with the King this week. He had the kissing hands ceremony. They don't actually kiss hands, but that's the formal moment at which he is approved as Prime Minister. And he'll be back there every week to sit in front of the King for his weekly audience. And I think he, like so many Prime Ministers before him, will come to hugely value that moment between monarch and Prime Minister, because it is the one meeting, the one conversation that they can have without fear of it being leaked anywhere. And it's been described previously as by previous Prime Ministers as a kind of therapy session, this real sounding board that they get from someone who, the late Queen, had so many decades of experience, but so does King Charles from his time as the Prince of Wales, and his diplomatic skills have been very,
and don't
very
forget, he
honed.
knew Andy Burnham, unless I'm mistaken, when Andy Burnham was Health Secretary, is that right? And the King was then Prince of Wales, and apparently they used to write letters to each other.
That's so interesting, because on paper, I don't see them as the most natural of mates. So that's
apparently complementary medicine was something that they bonded over.
That's so interesting.
So there is some history there, and I suppose that is the example of having a king who served for so many decades as Prince of Wales.
And they went to the same university.
I didn't know that.
This is the first Cambridge Prime Minister we've had since Stanley Baldwin.
So not an Etonian, but Cambridge graduate.
Yes.
I'd love to know, Grant, if you've got any insight into, did you have any idea of how the King received various Prime Ministers? What was his views? Did he ever let them be known?
Well, you know, when I was there, he met with the Prime Ministers. Quite interestingly, as obviously when they're in Scotland, even when the Prime Minister was over to Balmoral, he would go and visit the King as well. So the King would have private audiences with the Prime Ministers. So it was interesting when he became King, and people, this is a new thing for him, but the reality is it isn't really. But he's always impartial. He does exactly what the late Queen did. You know, he gives advice if it's asked for. He listens to what they talk about. He's got many years of experience, like his late mother did. So no, he's very good with them. And as I said, he's got ideas. Of course, he's got ideas of things that he wants to kind of do to improve the country, and he probably shares those ideas. But he gets on as far as I could see, with all the kind of prime ministers that there's been, but as we've said, there's been quite a few, hasn't there, recently?
Yeah,
he's had to work hard to keep up. I think it was John Major who said that he would leave those meetings, those audiences with the Queen feeling wiser as a result. And I think those years of experience, and as you say, almost akin to a therapy session, and to be a fly
also, the
on
King
the
has
wall.
got a much longer memory than the politicians. So that, you know, when a big crisis crops up, either with a foreign affairs or domestic thing, the King will be able to say to the Prime Minister, well, you may be terribly worried about this, but back in 1980 or back in 1970, and he will... so there is some virtue in having an older head of state.
He's a very
100%.
keen historian, isn't he? He's extremely well read, and of course he gets his red boxes. He's a very diligent, hard-working man. This is someone who will be across every detail.
And it must
you've
be...
made me feel so reassured, you two.
I was just about to say, it must make, but I was just about to say, Jo, you took the words out of my mouth. That must be so reassuring to the Prime Ministers at the time who are thinking, well, this is awful. It cannot get much worse than this. And frankly, you watch politics and you think it can't. But actually, historically, it has done. And we've come through it. And I very much agree with your point, Andrew, that to have the continuity and the stability of the monarch as head of state when there is so much transience in politics really does make it important for us as a country.
And I think any Prime Minister would value that, actually.
I agree. Well, as we're recording the show, the King and Queen are preparing to attend the opening ceremony of the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. We are going to talk about the Games. We're going to get into a fun discussion about that. But I think off the back of the conversation we've just had, it is worth just talking a little bit about the Commonwealth. Because at the Commonwealth Games, of course, we see a wonderful array of games, scaled back slightly because of costs, understandably so. But also, it is a reminder of this association of countries who have chosen to be part of a group of countries with the King as its elected head. Now, that was agreed when the late Queen was still alive and on the throne, that Charles would succeed her, and he has done. We've seen Barbados leave, not the Commonwealth, but become a republic. Possibly that's a growing trend. But Andrew, how important is the Commonwealth, not just for an event like the Games, but within this transient world of flux in which we live?
I think it's hugely important. And I think the Games are a very big part of it because they're not overtly political, but they're a way of all these different people from all over the world coming together. We tend to use the adjective post-colonial in a very negative sense because people, I mean, there's been a great row just lately of somebody working at the V&A Museum in London saying the colonial past hangs over us in a terrible guilt which Europeans rightly feel about what they did in Asia and in Africa in the past. But the Commonwealth is a wonderfully positive story because at the end of the empire in the 1960s and going right back to the 40s when India became an independent nation and then Pakistan and then Bangladesh, it was decided not by the British wanting to impose anything, but by the people themselves that they would like to come together and remain part of this family of nations, which had been an empire and was now a Commonwealth, a very good word for it. And the Queen was deeply involved in all that. There were lots of occasions where either more or less openly, as I said earlier with Mrs. Thatcher, or a little bit behind the scenes in the time of Mr. Macmillan. For example, when the Gold Coast was going to go independent, the Prime Minister actually forbade the Queen to go there. She disobeyed that. She went. They said, whatever you do, you mustn't talk to Nkrumah. He's going to lead this country. They just call it Ghana. It's going to turn into a communist state. It's terrible. He went to the London School of Economics. You mustn't go near him. And so she went straight up to him as soon as she arrived. And she didn't have a discussion with him. She danced with him. And it was such an eloquent thing to do. It was raising two fingers to the politicians at home, and it was demonstrating to all the people of Africa that she was on their side. And as she was with Nelson Mandela, you see. When Mrs. Thatcher was still saying Nelson Mandela was a criminal who went to prison for good reason, because he was a terrorist, the Queen was on his side. And that was an extraordinary thing to do.
Sarah, it's when I think we see the royals, we hear that word soft power, don't we, bandied around, but that dance dissipated all political tension on the dance floor.
And we see the King is not afraid to get involved in dancing whenever he visits Commonwealth countries, and that's his way of saying,
We're
I
together.
am part of you. I respect your culture. I respect your traditions. We are part of the same family. And I think that's what the Commonwealth Games is about. It's celebrating that family of nations. And of course, there are many questions about its future, its relevance, whether it is a relic of a colonial past. But what it does do is bring together these countries. You know, a large proportion of Commonwealth countries are smaller states and they have far greater power as a union. And a lot of the issues are shared issues on which the King is a powerful advocate. For example, climate change, sustainability, young people. 60% of the population of the Commonwealth are under 30.
For goodness sake, when you think about all the division and volatility in the world, I think let's celebrate something that's actually unifying.
And we're hearing this from an Australian.
I am a very proud member of the Commonwealth, and this country's been very good to me, and I feel like it's a large reason for that is because I'm part of this Commonwealth and I've been allowed to work here and say,
So it's important.
Very pro, yeah.
And for the King, it's difficult because he doesn't have that sort of nostalgia and the affection that his mother enjoyed from Commonwealth countries. He's had to earn that. And I think what he brings to it is this advocacy and this bringing together countries on the issues that really matter to them. And that's what will preserve the Commonwealth and make it relevant in the future.
But let us not forget that this whole lovely, unifying, bonding moment for the family of nations is about sport.
Yes.
And, it's not my strongest subject, but I do want to talk about who are the sportiest royals. Now, we have leading the field, obviously, Princess Anne and her daughter Zara. I mean, I remember being a 6-year-old girl and watching Princess Anne compete in the equestrian at the
Montreal
Olympics.
76.
That's right.
Yeah.
And
you're giving your age away there.
I think that's given away just by looking at me.
Not at all.
And what I didn't know though was that King George VI actually competed at Wimbledon.
I didn't know this until I read this today.
I didn't think he'd do very well, but he still competed. Have you got any other
wasn't
favourites?
quite the same prize money then, was there?
No, definitely not. Wooden rackets and probably not much to put in the pocket afterwards. But, of course, Zara followed in her mother's footsteps. She rode, I think it was Toy Town, wasn't it?
Yes.
In the 2012 Olympics.
2012.
She brought silver back for us.
But it's interesting, isn't it? Because I think that it becomes a bit of a class issue again, where we kind of tend to associate the posh sports, the expensive sports, polos, equestrian riding, those things with the royals. But it is fair to say that there has been a bit of a movement to sort of like bring royals more adjacent to, let's say, the more populist areas of sport.
You're talking about Aston Villa?
Like Aston Villa, like football. But this is something that came up, not everybody's convinced, because James Corden put this question to Prince Harry on his World Cup show. Just have a look.
I always thought that you went to a school that was too posh to play soccer. Do you know what I mean?
Like to play football?
Yes.
Why are you calling it soccer?
Because we're in the United States, baby.
It's absolutely amazing, isn't it?
Soccer.
Yeah.
It's football.
It is football.
And
Come
Harry
on,
did
James.
Harry did used to be good at it. I remember they when they went to Sandringham for Christmas, on Christmas Eve, there was a traditional football match.
Yeah.
I don't know if Harry and William played on the same team. I think they did then, and it would be all the staff. In fact, Grant, do you know what I'm talking? Where's Grant? Is he back? Or is he with the captain or something? Grant, do you remember that?
I'm driving the ship.
They used to have a big football game, didn't they, on Christmas Eve when they were up at Sandringham?
They still, as far as I know, they still do. As you say, Christmas Eve. They've done it for many years, and I think you're right. I think the boys used to play in the same side, or sometimes it was the household as well. And they also, in the summer, I believe there's also a cricket match that they all get involved in as well, because I remember being invited to go and watch, not to play, God help us if I played, but, to go and watch from the sidelines.
And Prince Philip was a tremendously sporty person.
Prince Philip was.
And could play anything, more or less.
Well, what about Charles, though? Was Charles sporty?
Well, he was a polo player.
OK, yeah.
But I know that's too posh, sorry.
It did. Well, but then Prince William is genuinely, absolutely nuts about the football, isn't he?
Oh, he really is.
Big Aston Villa passionate fan, and he wasn't he president of the FA?
Yes,
for a while.
And he used to play when they were living at Kensington Palace. He'd get on his motorbike and he'd play five-a-side football in Battersea with his mates. He absolutely loves the game, and you can see that when we saw him at Istanbul when Aston Villa won the Europa Cup, and he was there, and the celebrations were so genuine. Aston Villa runs through his veins.
Yeah, he's not quite the same when he goes to, say, the BAFTA Awards, is
No,
he? Yeah,
but it was interesting seeing Harry there alongside Rio Ferdinand, who was in the studio with James Corden. And it took me back to William when he went to watch Aston Villa playing PSG in Paris, and he stood up and he got a lot of praise for his football punditry when he was standing alongside Rio Ferdinand. And I wondered, this is kind of Harry on William's territory when it comes to football.
Yeah, there's been a bit of that, hasn't there, on social media? Why is he sort of stepping on William's toes? And, I mean, I suppose...
But, you know, they can both have it.
Come on,
It's a bit like when they had the argument about,
football.
you know, Africa.
I think everyone's allowed to like football.
Yeah.
Let's not give... there's a few things we can give Harry a hard time about, but I'm going to let that one slide for him.
I thought that was a nice glimpse of the old Harry that we liked before he went off.
I feel like
the rails.
Harry's trying to get back to the old Harry.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Cheeky, chappy Harry.
Yeah, the interviews that we've seen of late, the Joe Marler, this with James Corden, are very much...
Suddenly remembered that having fun is a good idea.
And it's OK.
Yeah, and it's OK. And actually, it's much more fun than going to the High Court and doing everything that's actually caused him so much misery in the long term. Just have some fun.
Just have some fun. And you could have some fun, Harry, by going to the Highland Games. This is what the Royals love the most, isn't it?
The Balmoral Games.
Tossing the caber, etc.
Yes.
Exactly. Now,
tossing the cabe is a
look at
large
this
log
So
that
I'm
they
told. Yes,
throw.
I mean, it's just, I love this footage here. I know that, Grant, you must have some amazing stories from the Highland Games. Tell us.
I do. Do you know, I remember as a youngster going and watching it, and then obviously when I worked for the King, you know, kind of going and sit with everyone else. But can I tell you something very funny? There's a very famous photograph, and I'll need to see if I can find it maybe for the next show to show everyone. But it's basically the late Queen and the now King in hysterics. And when I say hysterics, they're uncontrollably laughing. And I only found out the other day from somebody in the household what they were laughing at was one of the Scotsmen. He kind of showed a little bit too much bottom. And apparently, I think he was actually tossed into the cable when this happened. And the Queen saw this and apparently just went into floods of tears. And there's a photograph where you see them. And I always wondered what they were laughing at. And anyway, I was told the other day this is what had happened, was that a Scotsman had shown a little bit too much. And the Queen and the now King thought it was hysterical.
I think we want to hear from that Scotsman now.
Well, and Scotsmen famously don't wear anything under their kilts.
Well, we've had previous of that with...
Yes, we have personal
our royal butler sitting right there in that position.
Oh, and
I'm going to erase that image from my head.
Sorry
Talking
about
of
that.
too much bottom, Grant.
Sarah, you've tried your hand at tossing the caber, I believe.
It was a hammer throw I had a go at the
Okay.
Braemar gathering. I'm afraid I wasn't very good at it. But it is... it's a long time ago, you can see.
There you are.
I think that's 2008. And that was at the
You
Braemar
needed a
gathering.
tank top like your burly man
I
there,
know.
not all sort of
I
like
mean-
trussed up in your beautiful red coat.
But, you know, I mean, we laugh and they're very, very fun events, but they are huge and very, very strong. And I think that the caber is this huge 20-foot log that they have to roll over in a particular way. I mean, these are very strong men. And Grant is absolutely right. I know the photograph he's talking about. The Queen absolutely in hysterics. And every year, actually, you'll see the Queen Camilla and King Charles wiping their eyes with laughter.
They
as
do
they're
love it,
watching.
don't they?
They absolutely love it. They often take guests there. I don't know whether Andy Burnham will get his first experience of the Highland Games
I think he'd like
this
it.
year,
I'm
because he'll be going to
sure.
Balmoral.
He will have
as
that
Prime
invitation.
Minister. Whether or not they'll take him to the Highland Games, it's
I-
part of the initiation.
I bet you they do. And of course, talking of initiations and traditions, Scotland is always, Andrew, the first place that the King heads as soon as all his official duties
Very much
are
so,
done.
going right back to his sainted forebear, Queen Victoria, who built Balmoral indeed, all those years ago, and who loved the Highland Games. I mean, it was Queen Victoria and Prince Albert who started this craze. And it goes right the way back. It's very
Was it
much part
just-
of this family's tradition. And this, Prince Albert always felt he was back in Germany once he was in the Highlands.
Was it the escapism? Is it just the vast landscape, the freedom, the fresh air, the highlands?
It's partly they were romantics, Victoria and Albert, and they did love mountains and the open air, etc. But it was also, I mean, Queen Victoria loathed ceremony and formality, and to be able to go to a country where women literally let their hair down. She was just entranced the first time she went to Scotland, and women, like all the women in the studio, rather than having their hair tightly bound up, as Victorian ladies did, let their hair go free over their shoulders. She just loved that, and it was just a sign of liberty.
Oh, she would have hated the TikTok era. Oh, my goodness.
She would have hated the TikTok era.
Yeah.
But Scotland remains just a passion for them all. The late Queen used to have a big sleepover, didn't she, Sarah, at the end of August, that bank holiday weekend, and all the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren would be invited up for this sleepover. I don't know if it's a tradition that the King continues. I hope so.
Well, we know it's kind of a rolling house party across the summer at Balmoral. So various members of the royal family have their weeks and they all go and spend time with the King in Scotland. And it is somewhere where they can all relax. And the Queen, it was always said, the late Queen, that she left her crown at the gates and put on her headscarf. And for the King, that love of nature again, he's often seen hiking there. He'll be there with his walking stick and he'll walk for hours and hours. And that freedom, that the fishing, for example, and so now that the grandchildren take part in it as well, that's the chance for them all to all get together as a family and have some really quality time. There is work still. The red boxes will still be delivered to Balmoral. There is the visit from the Prime Minister as well. But really, it is a chance for them to be free, to be private, to be in nature and to be together. I mean, Margaret Thatcher, we talked about her relationship with the late Queen. She absolutely loathed Balmoral.
She tried to do it for walks in heather in her high heels.
High heels, yes. She thought it was the most terrible place in the world. And I think Cherie Blair wasn't a big fan either.
Can I just interrupt? I've got to mention that Margaret Thatcher said wasn't a fan, and so much so, apparently, when she was at Balmoral, she was a little bit rude to some of the staff up there. And I remember being told that she was so rude that during one of the dinners, one of my friends, a butler, actually put the hot salva dish to touch her hand, to bun her hand, to teach her some manners. So that's how much she didn't enjoy being up at Balmoral.
Wow,
No wonder she didn't want to go back.
They missed that detail on The Crown, didn't they? They remember that Balmoral episode of The Crown? That would have been great.
Cherie and Tony Blair enjoyed it rather a lot because
I was hoping you weren't
I'm not
going to
go into detail, but that is where Leo Blair was conceived, as they told us too much information.
Really. And thanks for reminding, because I had actually successfully forgotten that. But yeah, thank you.
I was on laundry
to the
duty
Burnhams'
that day.
future with interest to see if they'll have an addition to the family after the Burnhams have been to Balmoral.
That's quite a naughty suggestion. And I think, what did you just say, Grant?
I just said I was on laundry duty, I think, that weekend.
OK. Gosh, let's move on, shall we? I just want to talk quickly about, there's been quite a bit of news in TV land for our royals. We've got Oprah Winfrey sat down with Vanity Fair to reflect on that interview. I think you know the one I mean, without me having to even say. The Harry and Meghan sit-down from, 2020?
Yes.
2021?
That's it, I can't remember
And
now.
let's hear what she had to say.
Were you silent or were you silenced?
The latter.
Okay, very nice. I don't think I've done it since. I don't know where the hell that came from. Whoop. Okay. I wanted to be clear because was she silenced? Were people telling her not to talk? That's why I said that. I said it for clarification because I didn't want later to hear, well, no, it wasn't that. It really was that I was silenced. They wouldn't let me talk. So it was all for clarification.
Oh, come on, the irony of the clarification. That's not what I wanted clarification on. What about you?
The royal racist.
Exactly.
And absolutely no questions, no follow-up questions. I mean, you know, you're a journalist, you're sitting there doing one of the most high-profile interviews that will ever exist, and you don't ask the absolutely most important question, and you don't challenge.
It's been one of the most unfair things that has just hung over the royal family like this terrible stink, isn't it? That, like, you know, it just begs the question, well, who would have said such a thing if they ever actually did? What are your thoughts, Andrew?
Well, the first thing is what you've just said, if it actually happened. And the second is that I don't know a single family, certainly not my family, which, as far as I know, isn't mixed race particularly, but when a baby's about to be born, you say, I wonder if it will take after Mum, Dad, Great-Uncle Fred, or whoever it may be.
Yep.
That isn't a racist thing to say anyway.
No.
So, and that's all that, as far as we know. And Oprah Winfrey was expressing such shock. She said, what? So I think the whole thing was utterly ridiculous. And also, I mean, of all people, the royals led the way in being anti-racist.
Yeah, and I think...
Partly for the reasons we've been saying, because the Queen, from a very early age, was going around all the countries of the world, and among them the Commonwealth countries.
And the king is so inclusive. He just had so many faiths involved in his coronation and all of those things. I think it must have broken his heart to hear.
I know.
That,
and if you
that
think of
accusation.
the memorial service in Westminster Abbey for Prince Philip, and that young woman who'd done the Duke of Edinburgh's award scheme, saying she owed everything to it. And, and that because it was a colour-blind, class-blind organisation, as the royal family.
I mean, I don't know about you, Katie. I was surprised that Oprah wanted to revisit that.
Me too.
I mean, because she did get a lot of stick for it at the time.
And rightly so, as Sarah said. I mean, we're all journalists. I would say we're good journalists, and we would have asked probing
she
questions.
just allowed that statement to hang out.
And ask it, but follow it up. What was the context? What was the context of this conversation? And I think that clip that they played earlier about were you silent or silenced, it all felt so engineered.
And that was really annoying. I just found that really
that
annoying.
was annoying. not Oprah's finest moment.
Sorry, akin to the Meghan curtsy in the Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
series.
Yes, indeed. Oh, well, anyway, let's move on because there's another, frankly, quite mischievous story that I really enjoyed from TV Land as well. Now, last week we discussed the news that Meghan Markle's show, With Love, Meghan, had received an Emmy, and a lot of you pointed out that it was a daytime Emmy.
Sorry, I will be full transparency here. I had assumed it was an Emmy, so thank you to all the comments that pointed out that the daytime Emmys simply don't count.
And apparently, yes, it's a lesser thing than the Emmys. And then this week we have learned that Eugene Levy's show, what's it called again? The Reluctant Traveller, has actually received a nomination for an Emmy, a proper Emmy.
Yeah, one that counts.
And it's particularly for the episode that involved Prince William and that beautiful interview he gave.
Yeah, it was a
probably,
fantastic interview.
one of the most revealing interviews he's ever given. So some people have sort of like mischievously made the comparison that Meghan's Emmy doesn't count, her nomination, and William's does. What say you?
I mean, Meghan's leading lady territory, isn't she? She doesn't like to be the understudy, so I don't think this will go down all that well. Although I guess you can just count the daytime bit as the small print, you know.
Yeah, she'll be saying Emmy, won't she?
An Emmy.
It's an Emmy.
But absolutely right, this was a brilliant interview that Eugene Levy did. William at his absolutely most candid. I mean, who can forget seeing him arrive on his electric scooter in Windsor Castle, but, you know, more open and honest and frank than we've ever seen him before.
It deserves an Emmy, that, because Eugene got William to open up in a way that I don't think actually anyone else has.
No, I think it was a brilliant thing. And I think actually the Meghan, I'm not as anti-Meghan as probably most other people in the world, but the daytime telly programmes she's made have been absolutely pathetic. And you just wish for her sake.
Haven't had the best reviews, have they?
No.
No, indeed.
Grant, what are your feelings about the Emmy for William? Well, not for William, sorry, for Eugene Levy, for the show. It's not for William.
Yeah. No, I think it's well deserved, and as you've all said, the show's so nicely done, and it's very much William. You know, watching it back again, it's very much him, very much a personal him. Do you know what I mean? Which we get to see that, but even when I was watching it and him saying about how he wants to modernise the royal family, and this is where the small R comes from. You know, this is something that's really he's passionate about, and I just thought it was so nicely. It was nicely done. It's extraordinary. I mean, could you imagine interviews that this been done even 15 years ago? As we know, the late Queen famously never actually gave an interview herself, anything like that, where it just shows you we're in a very modern time with a modern royal family, a very transparent, and William's aware of that. So I think it's great that he does the things he does. And also, again, the social media side, we spoke at that as well. All these little videos that go on now behind the scenes whenever there's family occasions. This is William, who's fiercely private and also the protection around his family, fiercely, but yet he's happy to give us all this insight. And it's a very fine balance, and he's doing it really well.
Well, I suppose it's William doing royalty, isn't it, with a small R. What the hell?
He really is wearing just underpants.
So here we go. Oh, yeah. No, it's the shots.
Good Lord.
I'm all ready to go out and sunbathe.
Oh.
See, look, we've got an escort.
Where
we've got a
are
lifeboat
you?
escorting us. Gemini.
Ah.
I'm glad it's brightened up a bit.
I've done the Queen Anne.
You have?
Yeah.
Was it nice?
Lovely.
It's very, and the rooms are really nice. I mean, I'm quite lucky that I'm in quite a nice suite, so I get a little sitting area and quite a nice balcony, so it's not too bad.
You're doing quite well to get good Wi-Fi for this.
I know.
Yes. Grant.
Yeah.
Oh, well, they've given me really good Wi-Fi, and they've also given me a butler. Did I mention that?
The butler's got a butler.
I have a butler. I was trying to get him to come in, but he's somewhere down the corridor. I think he's doing my canopies and champagne, which I have in about 25 minutes. But yeah, I have
try and behave, won't you?
Ridiculous life. A ridiculous life this man lives.
Try and behave.
Thanks for joining us, Grant.
Bye, Grant.
I will see you next week in the studio.
See you next week. Well, that's all this week on the Royals Uncensored. Thank you to our lovely guests, Sarah Hewson and Ian Wilson. If you enjoyed the episode, please like and subscribe on YouTube, and we'll see you next week.